Welcome to TrailManners, the podcast so dedicated to mountain trails and running that they broadcast out of a 78 Volkswagen bus in the mountains. Who does that? Eric and Joel are your hosts and will bring you the trail life as you may have not heard it before. You hear about everything from gear reviews, nutrition to keep you upright and moving forward, and they'll even bring guests into the bus for conversations that you won't hear anywhere else. It's time for some running adventures on a higher elevation. The old 78 Volkswagen bus is fired up and headed to the mountains. Here are your hosts for TrailManners, proudly representing the 801 with their passion and love for the trails, Eric Manning and Joel Hatch.
Welcome to the TrailManners podcast, episode number 131. Today, we're going to be talking with Garth Harris. So if this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. The TrailManners podcast is produced every week for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at trailmanners.com. Come back often, and please feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at TrailManners. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get after it. All right, welcome back to another edition of the TrailManners podcast. I am your host, Eric Manning, and today we have a guest that we've been trying to get on, since last July that I remember. Tried to catch up with him at the Beaverhead race, but just didn't work out. So we've got Garth Harris joining me today. Garth, thank you for taking the time to join me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So those of you that don't know Garth, he's got an amazing story, and he is a trail runner locally here in Ogden area. Garth, give us a little, background to who you are, family. What do you got? Who are you? Who's Garth Harris?
I don't know how much time you got.
Oh, we got all kinds of time on this memory card.
I haven't been running for very long, probably 2 years now. Was roughly when I got started. I've got I don't know quite where to begin here.
Well, are you from the Ogden area?
Actually, no.
Okay.
I grew up in West Valley.
Okay.
I moved up here last year.
Oh, wow. So you've only been in the Ogden area for a little while.
Yeah, just a little while. Yep. Summer of 2017.
What brought you to Ogden?
Work did.
Yeah.
I was working in Clearfield. We just saw an opportunity to come up here, and it worked out well.
What do you do for work that you moved up here?
Well, funny story is that I moved up here for work, and then shortly thereafter they kind of laid me off. So now I'm actually working back down in Draper.
Oh,
so
no.
I'm commuting down there.
So your commute, is an hour one way?
Yeah, about an hour. Yeah.
Wow, depending on traffic?
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm taking the train.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Smashing that carbon footprint, taking care of the world.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yep.
And it's probably more relaxing, too.
Oh, it is. Yep. Biking to the train station every morning.
Oh, nice.
Taking the train down.
So when do you have to leave work to go to work?
Oh, super early, 4 a.m.
And you get home at what?
It's about 6.
Wow. So there's a nice 14-hour day right there.
Right.
And so when do you find time to run?
That is a good question. It's usually late at night now.
Really?
Yeah, and then weekends. I try to take full advantage of it.
And you got a tight schedule, so about 14 hours during the week a day.
Right.
Plus you've got a family.
Yep.
So you're married with 4 girls?
4 girls, yeah. Yeah, oldest is 16, my youngest is 5.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good spread.
Yeah.
That keeps you busy.
Oh, I tell you, some days I just hold on for the ride.
It's probably a smart thing to do, especially being outnumbered the way you are.
Oh, yeah.
Just kind of go with whatever's going. You got a lot of princess stuff going on in your house?
Oh, it is, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. That's
Barbies, princess, it's all that. It's I'll tell you, going through it, it's all undiscovered territory. I grew up with 4 brothers.
Oh, wow.
So girls just
it's a different ball game.
Oh, huge.
Do you get many manicures or makeovers or anything?
Definitely had my nails painted.
Yes.
Hair done.
So I used to do makeovers with my 2 daughters.
Okay.
But we'd go to the next level of role playing. Like, okay, they'd say, act like you're a businesswoman from Texas in town. And I'd have to come up with a female accent from Texas, and we'd be the whole shebang, and I would leave looking pretty good.
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right. So you say I've been running long. So so you've been running for roughly 2 years.
Yeah, roughly.
And this past July was Beaverhead, the 55K. Was that your first ultra?
Yeah, that was my first ultra.
Okay, so you were basically 0 to 55K in about 2 years.
Yeah.
So let's blow some minds here,
okay,
if you will. How did you or why did you get into running?
Well, I have to go back. So I have been pretty much overweight my entire life.
Okay.
Growing up, I was always the biggest kid. I was active, but I was always bigger than the other kids. And then you get into high school. For me, I got a little bit more sedentary. And then after high school, I just got into an office job and became really sedentary. And at that point, my weight really started to pile on, and I really kind of just ballooned.
Okay. So when you say obese or overweight or ballooned, give us an idea what your weight was about.
I was over 400 pounds.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I know for a lot of people that's hard to imagine what that actually feels like.
Yeah.
But physically and mentally, it's very challenging.
I could imagine.
Yeah. It's a daily struggle. It really is, being that way.
And so how long do you think you were kind of at that weight or at that daily struggle? Was it for years?
Yeah. I was probably 10 plus years.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And so because I've only seen you how you are now, right? So when I first met you, this is how you look. So I can't imagine you at 400 pounds. So we've had a couple guests on the show. Brad Sween was one.
Right.
Melissa Solomon was another, and I've known them since they were at their quote-unquote running weight.
Right.
So I can't envision that. So without going into too much, was it like for you? Your daily, you say it's a daily struggle. I mean, what was that? What did that entail?
Yeah. I mean, it's waking up and not sleeping well to begin with. I wasn't diagnosed with sleep apnea, but I most likely had it at that weight.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sleeping well. Joints were just constantly in pain. It was a struggle just to do daily tasks, bring in groceries, go upstairs. It was just a lot of repetitive cycle. I just would get into that cycle and I wouldn't do much. I wasn't very active. I wouldn't get out. Life at that point really didn't offer much to me.
Gotcha. And so at this point, I'd imagine, your oldest is 16 all the way to 5, so at this point you had your kids in the mix. And so
yeah.
I imagine, without getting into too much before we jump ahead, I imagine just even being with your children, active, carrying them around, playing with them, that was also a challenge, right?
Yeah, it really was. And one of the things that I wasn't proud of, but I could see my lifestyle kind of affecting my children's behavior as well. I could see those sedentary behaviorisms, starting to creep into their life as well, and I didn't want that for them, obviously. Sure. I want them to be able to go out and explore life and take advantage of it.
So how did the next chapter of your story begin? Was it like an epiphany one day? Was it New Year's resolution? What made you did you wake up one day just enough is enough? Was there a moment that just changed?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that there was like one defining moment that put everything in perspective for me, and I think it was just a series of everything leading up to where I was at, saying, "Look, enough's enough. I've got to do something, or I am not going to be here in 10 years, and I want to be there for my family. I want to be there for my wife and my kids. And if I would have continued down that path, I know, it would have ended in disaster."
So did you ever have doctor's appointments or things, and doctors would tell you anything? Were you looking in the face of diabetes? Were you looking in the face of other health issues, concerns, things like that?
Yeah, when I was overweight, I kind of took that approach that if I didn't go to the doctor, I was fine. So
okay.
I would imagine that I don't see how I couldn't be pre-diabetic.
Yeah.
At that way. I probably guess that I was.
Yeah.
I'd been into the ER a couple of times for concerns about heart attack and things like that. So,
and how old are you, Garth, by the way?
I'm turning 40 this year.
Wow, the big 4-0.
Yeah, I know. Right.
You still got a good haul ahead of you.
Yeah.
So you were young when you were visiting the ER with those concerns.
Oh yeah, I was.
And it was all weight and health issue, basically.
Yeah, it
it's
really
not
was.
genetics and all this other stuff.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so when you decided, what was your plan of attack? Did you have one? Did you sit down and say, this is what I'm going to do? Or was it just kind of like baby stepping it at that point?
It was a lot of baby stepping it. And unfortunately, right now, you go out there and you try to put together a plan of attack. Mm-hmm. And there's so much misinformation about health in general that it's kind of hard to weed through.
Gotcha.
And know what's right for you and what actually works and what's just someone trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
Right.
Snake oil.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it's first I knew that it would have to come down to just how many calories I was putting in compared to what I was putting out.
Okay.
So I just basically started with walking around the block. I mapped out about a mile in my neighborhood, and I just started walking. And it was just a matter of watching what I was eating at that point as well.
Give me an idea of what pre-New Garth, what were you eating before? Was it did you even care? Or was it just one of those things where I went out to lunch, had lunch? I mean, was it just whatever? Right?
It was whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing too was that I developed a real love for cooking.
Oh,
and
okay.
And part of that was from watching Food Network. And when you watch those shows,
yeah, right.
it's very, very high calorie.
Yeah. Throwing a stick of butter here.
Exactly.
We'll start with a stick of butter.
There's no regard for calories or nutrition whatsoever. It's all about full flavor.
Yep.
And I wanted all of that because it was all about taste.
Oh yeah.
When I was eating, I had no regard to how it made me feel afterwards. It was just that's what I wanted, so I went out and eat it.
Nice.
And there was a number of nights where I was grabbing a pizza at 10 o'clock at night, and that was after dinner, and the next morning I was going to McDonald's or whatever else. So
when you started to make the change and did your calorie counting, was there things you completely cut out? Did you focus on certain things, or was it more just calorie based? Like, hey, it doesn't matter what I eat, as long as I stick within this range.
Yeah, actually, one of the things I found. Is that I found an app called Map My Fitness.
Okay.
That's what it's called.
Yeah.
By Under Armour. It allows you to track your calories. And I started putting in everything that I ate into that app, and I started really just watching what I would eat. Now, I naturally reduced the number of carbohydrates that I was consuming. I was reducing the number of fats I was consuming, and cut out sugars and things like that. Now, as I kind of learned and evolved and understood what dieting really meant or what nutrition meant,
yeah,
that changed, and
okay.
I realized that there was a place for carbohydrates, there was a place for even refined sugars in my diet. It just was a matter of finding what that balance was. Gotcha. Based off of what my body needed at the time.
And so you say you got into cooking and you have wife and 4 kids. Was it a household change at that point too? Because you would cook and say, no, I'm having this or only this amount or whatever. So was it kind of a household change? Yeah,
fortunately, I would do a lot of the cooking in the house as well. So my wife really got on board with it.
Nice.
And so the changes that we made it really affected my family as well. So we were eating a lot more vegetables, fruits and vegetables, whole foods, things like that. A lot less fat, and and I picked up some small things that really kind of helped me. I'd take a smaller plate. I'd start with actually the size of my plate.
Yeah.
I would use.
Okay.
Would be smaller.
Gotcha.
Because it was a visual thing.
Yep.
I could fill my plate up and look like, hey, I've got a lot of food on this plate, but the reality is
it's like more of a saucer type plate than a big
exactly.
dinner plate.
Exactly. So it was, so it was small things like that kind of really helped me along.
How long into it did you start to notice some change, not just with your weight, but all of it, your weight, your mood, your sleeping, your energy levels, how you felt when you woke up? how long did it take for you to kind of notice some changes? Was it pretty quick?
Yeah, as far as the weight loss concerned, I was.
Yeah.
I started to see a change right away.
Okay.
One of the nice things is that if you go from 400 pounds to watching what you're eating and exercising, you see an immediate change. There's
Gotcha.
a lot of change to be made.
Gotcha.
It's not like now where, if I make changes, it's a lot slower.
Because you're looking for 10 pounds, and that takes longer, right?
Exactly.
Good.
Yeah.
So 2 years ago, you kind of started this path, making these changes. When did you incorporate? So did you incorporate exercise at the same time? So you incorporated walking with your change of diet?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
So I stuck with walking, and I did that for, I don't know, 6 months probably.
Okay.
6 months, and then we got a membership at the West Valley Rec Center.
Okay.
Which I absolutely love that place out there. It's great. And we'd just go every night. We just made it a habit, started going every night. And, back in the past when I was a little younger, I'd say younger, but I was probably in my 20s at that point.
That's younger. You're 40, almost 40.
I did a little bit of running, of attempting to run, and I knew that I liked it, so I wanted to try it again. So I started just going faster and faster on the treadmill, and
this is walking.
Yeah, walking.
Pace?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, walking pace, and then I'd start picking it up a little bit more. I'd mess with the incline a little bit to give me a little bit better workout, things
Yeah.
like that. And then I remember running my first mile on the treadmill. How exhilarating.
One consecutive mile.
Yeah, one consecutive mile.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
I think it took me 14 minutes. I mean, it was pretty slow comparatively, but still, it was a pretty big milestone for me.
If you had to guess, and I know it's hard to just with your entire journey, but if you had to guess about what weight were you when you did your first consecutive mile?
Ooh.
Were you 300 pounds, under that, above that?
Yeah, I probably lost about 60 pounds by that point. Wow. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how did that feel, though? Was that just like this huge milestone?
Like, it just, like you wouldn't even believe. I mean, it was like, it's almost like walking or running for the very first time.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe what that feels like, to be able to run consecutively for an entire mile without stopping.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
I bet it gave you a super big boost of confidence. So like a little of that, I'm going to go 2 next, or, something like that, right?
Oh, definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
sweet.
And in fact, it's interesting because people who knew me before I lost my weight to now, I've always been very shy and conservative. I mean, I still am today for most part, but I'm much more outgoing now than I was.
But do you think that has to do with your weight loss?
Oh,
stuff
yeah,
too?
yeah. I think it gives you that confidence. You gain some confidence. You're not as self-conscious about yourself.
Yeah, because I know we had Melissa Solomon on the show, and one of the things that she kind of clicked in her head when she was on this, she said, I never wanted to be in pictures with my family. My kids, my family, I never wanted to be in the photos, and because she was self-conscious. And so it was that confidence when she started to lose weight. Then she started, I was like, hey, I took more pictures, I did this. Is that kind of how it was with you? It's just,
absolutely, yeah.
Your day-to-day stuff, work, family, everything.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, anytime there was a photo when I was overweight, I would bury myself in the back. I was hiding behind kids or, just trying to cover up as much as I could.
Yeah.
And, when you're overweight by that much, it's very, very much in the forefront. You walk into a room, and regardless of whether people were thinking it or not, you were always, hey, they're judging me. They're thinking, hey, what's going on with that guy,
Yeah.
So
I mean, going back to the beginning, I mean, not just the physical and the mental, but I mean, just some of that. That's a challenge, right? I mean, even people deal with it today, no matter what they look like. I mean, there's always something. I got a mole here, or people are always self-conscious, and it just
definitely
gets to them. Whether they're getting work done, right?
Right.
Or if they look fantastic, but they're not where they want to be. But I mean, you're talking about a completely different situation.
Yeah. I mean, it was not only physically demanding, but mentally demanding for me as well. So it was a lot of it was psychological. for me.
So you talk about that first mile. Did you have goals set up like, hey, I want to lose 10 pounds by this time or 20 pounds, or did you have any of that set up, or it was more or less, I'm just going to keep consistent, keep doing the same thing, or did you have goals along the way?
I did have goals that I wanted to reach as far as my weight loss was concerned. Not when I first started. I think when I first started, it was just a matter of wanting to make a change and seeing where that would lead. But as that developed, it turned into goals.
How difficult was that to make that change? I mean, was it, I don't want to say years, but was it like, okay, I'm going to do it, and then like a week later you'd stop? Or I want to do it, and then a month later you'd stop. I mean, how hard was it just to stay consistent? Did it change when you started noticing a difference? You're like, hey, this is working. I got to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, I think that was part of it. I was seeing success, and that would fuel my determination to keep moving forward.
Okay.
And as I progressed, I definitely learned a few things. One of the biggest things, and I think that why running really connected well with me is because as a runner, everybody experiences it at some level.
Yeah.
Is that trying to get through something difficult? Comes down to a lot of it is mental. It's physically you can do it, but mentally can you push through it?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, there was nothing physically that was preventing me from losing weight or being healthy. It was all in my head. It was just telling myself that, no, I don't need to go out and get a pizza at 10 o'clock at night. I don't need to eat that donut. I don't need that second helping.
Well, the donut, I don't know. We might have to readdress that one. Donuts are a different ballgame. That's like a vitamin. No. So are you different mentally now? Do you feel you're a lot stronger mentally than, say, you were 2 years ago?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Much more driven and focused.
Awesome.
And I think that really plays well, especially when you're starting to run long distance, and it really has that kind of appeal to me, is because I have that same kind of connection that at some point it comes down to, hey, mentally I've got to get through this or else I'm not going to finish this race.
Yeah.
And like I said, everybody, I think at some point when you're running a long distance, connects with that level. And even, honestly, it doesn't even have to be any long distance. It can be, just depending on the level you're at.
It's like you said, your first mile of consecutive running.
Exactly.
That's a huge milestone.
It could be 10 miles. It could be a mile, just depending on where you're at.
Yeah.
But it really comes down to, hey, mentally I've got to get through this. And I really learned that food before I lost my weight, it was an addiction for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was addicted to food, and I was addicted to calories, and anybody who has dealt with addiction knows that if there's going to be a change, it's got to be done mentally as well as physically.
No, I agree with that, and it's fun. It's interesting too, because you talk about the mental thing, and I mean, I will sit here to say I can't imagine what you've already done. I mean, honestly, it's so inspiring, literally, because we're not talking about, and I'm not trying to downplay small things like, I did my first marathon. That's inspiring, that type of stuff. But what you've gone through is years of, this is a health thing. This is a life or death thing, right? I mean, this is not just, hey, I just want to go, sub whatever to a marathon or whatever. This is more serious, right? Because if you, like you said, you'd have kept going down that path, don't know if you saw your 40th birthday at that point.
Yeah,
if you were in
it's
the
very
ER.
true.
Yeah.
It's true. And heart health, heart issues really ran in my family. So same with diabetes.
Okay.
So I knew that if I were to continue down that path, it eventually was going to catch up to me.
So you talked about making these changes as you went along. Is there one or two changes that made a huge difference instead of these little tweaks? Was there things you picked up along the way that was like, wow, that's what I need, or that's what's working? Yeah, well,
it's interesting. Everybody, now asks me, hey, what's the secret to losing weight? How do you get healthy? And there's a lot of different ways for different people to get healthy.
Yeah.
As I've learned, there's not one diet that works well for everyone. There's the paleo diet or Atkins or
Mediterranean.
Exactly. Yeah. There's hundreds of diets, and you've just got to find one that connects with you, that really allows you to get over that mental barrier and allows you to progress down that path.
Yeah.
So, whatever that is. And I found that for me, it was developing a balance in the way I was eating.
Okay.
I knew that from past experience, I couldn't just cut out one entire food group and find success, because I knew that, if I went to a really low carb diet and I was cutting out breads, that at some point I was going to binge eat on carbs, and then I was going to feel terrible, and then it was just going to spiral downward, and I was going to stop.
Gotcha.
So it didn't make sense for me to cut them out. Now, do I want to reduce that? Reduce those down? Absolutely. And one thing I also found was that it was okay to make a mistake. That was a big thing for me as well. That was probably one of my bigger hurdles to get over, is because I was finding success and then I would mess up.
Yep.
And then you're ingrained in that mentality that it was kind of in for a penny, in for a pound, where I just had a piece of cake. It's all over.
Yep. I'm back.
I might as well. I
just
might
gained
as well
60 pounds.
Exactly.
I lost. Yeah.
Exactly. Call it quits. But I found that if I were just to wake up the next morning and start making the right decisions again and start doing what I knew would work, I would get back on there and I would find success again. So it really wasn't. I would win and lose battles along the way, but it eventually won the war.
Gotcha. No, that makes complete sense. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people the same way, where they've, done these different diets or different, fastings or whatever else, and they mess up by, you said, I had a piece of cake, or, some of it's, it's real trending right now for sure is paleo or keto or keto, whatever it is, and it's like, oh yeah, I did this, and shit, I'm back to square one.
Yeah.
It's like, really? You've done 4 weeks of kicking butt. You made one tiny mistake, but it's that mental thing. It's like, I messed up.
Yeah.
But as you said, if you wake up the next day and say, nope, we're back on it. I mean, realistically, how bad would a piece of cake have set you back?
Yeah.
It doesn't, unless it's the mental game.
Right.
And if you mentally say, well, I better go finish the cake today since I already had a piece, that's losing there. That's a big loss because of that.
Exactly. I mean, everybody's concerned about holiday eating, but the reality is that, eating bad for the holidays really doesn't set you back. It's what you're eating for the rest of the year that really does, right?
Yeah.
If you're eating healthy and watching what you eat, all year round, sure, you can indulge a little bit during the holidays and it's not going to kill you.
Well, and I think that the other thing, and you talked about it and we'll get into it some more here, is combining a healthy eating plan with exercise, whether it's walking around the block, whether it's 1 mile on the treadmill, whatever it might be. I mean, that's having 2 bullets in your gun, when you're going out to spend one. So as you're eating, did you have, I think I talked to you, I read somewhere that you had a goal of running a marathon at some point, like I want to run a marathon.
I did, yeah.
So in your head, knowing where even from where you were at, whether you're down to 300 at that time, or maybe it was when you were around 400, how realistic, as much as you wanted to do it, how realistic did that seem to you?
Oh, geez. If you would have talked to me a couple of years ago about running a marathon, I would have just laughed you out of the room.
Well, because after you run your first mile, right, consecutive mile now, so it's 25 and 0.2 more, and you.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, hey, let's slow the roll here, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one of the things that helped me get to that level, though, was I got connected with a local training group, and they helped me put together a training plan and helped me work through nutrition and things like that, and that really kind of got me set on the path that I can run a marathon. So that really kind of sent me down the course.
The marathon, is that something you wanted to do before you started losing weight, or is that something as you kind of started into it, knowing that you had this running, you enjoyed it? Is that something you're like, hey, I want to do that now?
Yeah, well, it definitely was. It was something that I've always kind of wanted to do. At the time, I didn't realize there were actually longer distances that people that ran. But so when I saw a marathon, I thought, wow, 26 miles, that's pretty impressive. And 26 miles is still
26 miles, man. It's still impressive.
Yes, it is. So yeah, it's something I've wanted to do and never had the capability of being able to accomplish. So it's not something I've ever vocalized of as a goal until I actually started moving closer to the ability to accomplish that goal.
So help me now. So this is your turn to help me. You're in a situation where you found this group that helped you. How difficult was that to join or be a part of this group? I imagine there was like people that ran forever, like they've been running for 10 years, and there's people that were 100 pounds or 150 pounds, and you come in, different background, different weight. How difficult was that for you to make that step into that?
It was a pretty big step. Part of my weight loss was I was gaining confidence in myself, and so I wanted to continue to push that, and so I had to push out. I pushed myself out on a limb, and I joined a group with, obviously there was some apprehension there because you don't ever want to be the last guy. And I've been the last guy before, so I know what that feels like, but it's always there in the back of your mind. You kind of feel ashamed a little bit, and you don't want somebody just to blow you out of the water. And when I got connected with this group, I went once, and turns out they were, friends with some of my high school friends. There was a big connection there. I didn't even know who they were at the time, but
and they were welcoming, took you in.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That's one of the biggest benefits I've found with the running community is that there is just a welcoming. It's just open arms, basically. I've never felt judged or shunned, no matter, regardless of what my pace is or my skill set is. Everyone has always been welcoming and friendly.
Okay. Because you might have been listening to the podcast here and there. I know you've listened in the past, but so I'm trying to do yoga, but I can't get myself in the door.
Right.
And it's because it makes me nervous. And so when I see, it's inspiring to say, okay, you went from where you were at and you joined out of the blue. You didn't know anybody to join this group.
Right.
I mean, so that's what I'm trying to get past that hurdle, right? It's like,
so true.
How do I go in there? Joel doesn't help me. He keeps making fun of me about yoga, so that's not helping me. So maybe I need to kick him to the curb. So you joined the running group.
Yeah.
You got a training plans. You got dieting plans. Did you?
Yeah.
I'm going to assume, because I don't know. Did you do some 5Ks, some 10Ks, some halves, and then up to the marathon? And
in
you
fact,
worked your way up?
What I did was Thanksgiving morning. This was 2016.
Okay.
I ran my first 5K. It was down at the Bountiful Rec Center, so it was their turkey run.
Like a turkey type trot?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I got invited by my brother-in-law. I said, you know what? I'm up to 3 miles at this point. I could do it on a treadmill. I can run a 5K. So,
how did that go for you?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. That's really where I fell in love with running and racing. Is that you're going through, people are cheering for you. There's just a big sense of camaraderie. It's kind of an electric atmosphere. And I really fell in love with it at that point.
And you got your first PR, right?
Exactly. It was like a 13, 14 minute mile. But
a PR's a PR, man.
Exactly. I didn't finish last. So
that's right. So when you finished that, were you just ready for more at that point? Or were you just like, okay, let's bring it on. Let's keep the pedal down. Let's move forward.
Yeah.
And you just kept strict to your eating plans, to your training. Did you do other things besides run? Did you hit gym, like for weights, for stuff like that, or were you pretty strict with, not strict, but pretty much stick with running, treadmills, eating?
Actually, one of the biggest things, and one of the things that I really loved is from a side effect of my weight loss, was that I was able to get out more and experience life more. So I was hiking quite regularly with my family. I started playing softball with my daughter.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
And in fact, that has now stemmed a love with her in softball. She's on the junior high softball team. She loves it and goes for it every year.
That's awesome.
And I can see that as a direct reflect of my, getting healthy.
There with her too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Almost like ripples in a pond. I make a small change here and I'm getting healthy, and I can see it rippling out and affecting the people around me as well.
What was your family like? Like, not just your immediate family that you saw every day, but say you don't see someone for 3 months and then, hey, it's show up for a Thanksgiving meet. What was the reaction? Because I can only imagine. I honestly, I'm not. What was the reaction when they would see you when you would drop 60 pounds? They'd be like,
it's kind of funny. My sister-in-law, they live in Colorado, and I can't remember if they were in Colorado at the time, but I didn't see them very often. And I remember I was sitting in my in-laws' house, just sitting there chilling. We were talking. She walks in. She kind of brushes by me, doesn't even say hi, just kind of gives me this weird look.
Like, who's this guy?
Exactly. And then she was probably there for like 15 minutes, and then she looks over and she's like, oh my, is that you? Is that you? And I'm like, yeah.
Here I am.
Yeah. I've had people come up to me and they don't know who I am.
And it's got to feel pretty good though, too,
yeah,
right? I mean, because you've worked hard. This is something that you've changed an entire lifestyle, and you've worked extremely hard at. This isn't something that just happens. I mean, it's like a daily grind, but on the good side.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it really is.
What kind of changes, not just weight, was there other changes you started to feel, too, that were benefiting your life? I mean, you talked about, playing with your daughter and going hiking, but did you start sleeping better?
Oh,
your
definitely.
Confidence grew, your health, you weren't as many trips to the ER with, things like that. Did you see just a daily change with everything? Everything?
Yeah, there really was. And unfortunately I wouldn't say everything was positive with my change. There was some drawbacks.
Spending more money on clothes.
Yeah, that was the biggest one. Yeah. I was getting tired of it. I was the point where I was like, DI, because I just burning through clothes too quickly.
Every couple of weeks it's like, oh, these don't fit anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
So is that, what were some of you talk about, is there negative changes that you want to talk about?
It's kind of touching, personal, but I hope that if I share it, people can kind of relate, because it's when you go through your life, and I've been married for quite a while, 17 years now.
Oh, congrats.
I hope I'm right.
We'll edit it if you're not.
No, it's 17 years now, and a good majority of that marriage is based off of one way of doing things, and it was kind of a very sedentary lifestyle. It was you get accustomed to your partner, right, and how you live your life. Now I am far more active. I'm far more outgoing. I'm going out and I'm meeting people. I'm going to these events, and for me, it was kind of a kid in the candy store, a little bit effect. I got in there and I was like, oh man, okay, where do I start? I was jumping in for races. I won the Winter Series, the Striders.
Okay.
I won an entry into that, so there was races there.
Yeah.
I was running the marathon. I'd won a couple others, and so I was just packing my schedule. I was going out all the time, and so I really had to understand or learn how to balance this new love of mine with balancing family life.
Gotcha.
And so,
well, because we talk about it, running is a selfish sport.
Oh, it really is.
It is. I mean, it's just you're out there by yourself,
right?
And not that it doesn't benefit, but it is selfish.
Yeah, it really is.
So that with the change from the way you did, because it almost sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like you're almost trading one addiction for another.
Yes.
Right? I'm trading my food in, but now I've got this whole other time-consuming thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And with running, it didn't involve my wife.
Mm-hmm.
She's just not a runner.
Yep.
And so I was spending a lot more time away from her,
mm-hmm.
and that was something that she wasn't accustomed to, and it wasn't something that I was accustomed to. And so it was a struggle.
Finding that balance.
I mean, there was definitely some tough patches where I had to learn where, where does that line, I can focus on myself and something that I love, but also spend time with the family and spend time with my wife, and obviously nurture that relationship as well.
Yeah.
So there was definitely some rough patches there.
Yeah.
So, and that was definitely a struggle for a little while. And for me as well, I was skinnier. I was getting out. I was talking to people, and so there was that sense, not that there was ever there, that my wife was feeling a little threatened.
Okay. Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah. Right. And not that she ever had anything to worry about, but for her, you never know. You know, you're out there running with women you've never met, you know, and with people that you've never met, and she wasn't part of that.
Yep.
So it was so there's definitely some struggles there. Definitely.
And then you just kind of as through that, you know, up and down
right.
a little bit. I mean, you just kind of learn to adjust that timeline a little bit.
Yeah.
And I imagine, too, with 4 kids, I mean, that's a whole other section, right? Not just your wife, but now you still have 4 kids sitting over here.
Right.
Going, hey, where's my time for softball? Where's this? So you had to throw that in, plus your work days, right?
Exactly.
These long hours.
Right.
That's why you're running in the evenings now, is because that's your time slot for it. So that was kind of a negative impact, because I could see kind of both sides where she's proud of you, she's happy for you, but then you're kind of moving away. It's just she, you know, it's like, wait a minute, come back over here. You know,
exactly. And she wanted me to be healthy.
Yeah.
Obviously, it wasn't ever that.
Yeah.
You know, it just was. Where's the balance? Where's the time for her and for the family? And obviously it's a daily, or it's just something you have to work through, and just finding balance with everything that you do, right?
Well, and we have so many guests on the show. It's always the change, right?
Right.
You figure it out 1 minute, and then it changes the next. I got into Western. I got into Hard Rock. I got to train more.
Right.
Than, say, this race. And so there's ebbs and flows to it. And so it's that communication you got to keep open, and the balance. And I think for running in particular, that's probably not just the training. That could be for a significant other in a family, that's the catch-all, right?
Yeah.
Because if everything else is happy, your training's good. But if you have some, stuff brewing over here, it's going to bring you back down a little bit.
Yeah, it really is, right?
Yeah. So that balance is super critical. So you're getting into that. You're getting into these runs. Tell me your first marathon. What was your first marathon? How long ago was it?
It was May 2017.
Okay, and
so
was that Ogden Marathon?
Ogden, yeah,
okay.
yeah. Ogden was my first.
All right, so throw it out there. What was your finish time?
Oh boy, it was 4:30.
Okay. First of all, who cares?
Yeah, right.
Because just finishing a marathon, I don't care your story, anybody, but your story especially, we're talking about, that's huge.
Right.
Finishing a marathon. How did that race and finish line and everything go? I could imagine that had to be one of the biggest memories of your life. Note to take away from family. That's, to me, I always put that in a different bucket.
Right.
When people say that was like the greatest day of my life, it's like, that excludes family.
Right.
Family's always going to be the greatest day. These are my personal things. But what was that like for you?
Yeah. Well, to kind of preface it a little bit, I was doing this winter circuit, and I was staying with a friend up in Huntsville, and I was just about to run the half marathon, and I started developing a pain, and it kept getting worse, and turns out that my appendix was, not my appendix, but my gallbladder was going bad, and it decided to call it quits on me. So next morning I was in emergency surgery having my gallbladder removed. And that was about 6 months prior to my marathon, or 6 weeks prior to my marathon at that point.
So 6 weeks before your first marathon, you had your gallbladder removed.
Yeah, I had emergency surgery to have my gallbladder removed, and I was told by the doctors, and I don't know how true it is, but it's for some reason gallbladders just have a tendency to kick the bucket after you've gone through kind of an extreme weight loss.
Okay.
So, take that for what it's worth. I don't know.
So that threw a little wrench into your training plan.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it went from, and I'll tell you, it was rough day, because I was running almost every day at that point. I was guns blazing, focused on marathon, and then it was nothing for a good solid 3 weeks. And
how'd that 3 weeks end up?
Oh my God!
Were you super fun to be around?
Oh. My wife was like, I'm checking out. She's like, I'm gone. I can't deal with the mood swings. So I was like, because it was peaks and valleys. I was like, I can get through this. And then I was crying, and it was like, I was done. It was all over. Throw it in the towel. And
because it's, your journey. Right?
Yeah, right.
This isn't just a marathon. This was an entire journey-based situation. Yeah. I could see that. And you still, in your head, you're like, I'm still doing it. I'm still doing it.
Yeah. And then it was kind of that addiction to endorphins that I was getting from running, and then all of a sudden it was nothing.
Yeah.
And so it was a tough 3 weeks, and then I remember going out and running. Then it was awful after those 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
It was tough, and I thought, there's no way I was going to do this. And it just kind of slowly came back to me. I definitely entered into the marathon. I wish I had those 3 weeks or 4 weeks back,
and
for
your
sure.
Gallbladder.
Yeah, exactly.
It came across the finish line with you.
Yeah. To this day, I still don't eat Olive Garden. That's what I'm convinced what Olive Garden did me in that night. That's where I went.
We're not sponsored by them, so say what you need.
So, it was. So I lined up with a lot of self-doubt, thinking, I not only am running a marathon for the very first time after coming all this way, now I've got to deal with a setback of not, losing training for 4 weeks, just this close to a marathon. So there was definitely some self-doubt when I was lining up to that thing. For the first, 13, 14 miles, I felt pretty good.
Yeah.
I made it through, and fortunately, that year that I ran it, the weather was just absolutely amazing.
Wow.
It was like
a rarity for that race.
I know. It was 30s in the morning, and then it was warming up. I think it was a low 70s by the time I crossed the finish line, so you couldn't have asked for better weather.
Perfect.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
that race especially.
Oh, and the canyon, you just running down the canyon is just absolutely beautiful. So, but I'll tell you, I hit about, I think it was mile 17, 18, and oh boy. I was clicking off miles and those signs, and then I start getting there, and then, man, I was convinced that somebody was messing with me.
The signs were further apart at that point.
Exactly. They were moving those signs, those mile markers further apart. I was like, wait a second. I know I've been a mile. But and then you round, I think it's not Grant. I can't remember what the street is, but you run that street coming into the park for quite a while, and you can see the finish.
Yep.
Oh, that's awful.
It's a long way to wait. It really is after that far when you can. There's nothing worse.
I remember I was just in pain at that point, and I was coming down there, and all those people were cheering, and you wanted to run, but I tried. It was definitely the limp, pain, run, walk, do whatever you could to cross that finish line, but I did it.
How was that though?
One of the greatest moments, and one thing that I always reflect back on, is that my wife was there with my kids, and I was able to give her a big embrace right after that finish line, and there was nothing sweeter. I'll tell you, it was incredible.
So, what weight were you at? Do you think at that point?
I dropped a good majority of my weight at that point.
Okay, so you were down closer to what, 200 pounds?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe a little under at that point.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
From 400 to under 200 pounds. I mean, you basically just cut yourself in half.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. It was another person. I totally got rid of a whole other person.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So now when you finish your marathon, this is all road. When did you switch over, whatever, to get into the trail side?
I did a lot of hiking.
Okay.
And as a boy, I was into Boy Scouts, and I loved camping, loved backpacking, and that was something that I'd forgotten about. And so it was a natural progression for me. And when I moved up here to Ogden, I really didn't have an excuse.
Yeah.
I mean, the great thing is that now living up here in Ogden, I have no excuse to road run at all.
Yeah.
I can be on a trailhead in 10 minutes and enjoying the trails year round. So.
Yeah.
And that's really where trail running really connected and took off for me, is that when I moved up here, I just had the access that I didn't have in Salt Lake. I was living down in West Valley, and really to get down to a trailhead in West Valley, it was 40-minute drive.
Yeah.
So road running made much more sense for me.
Yeah, it's
living
convenient
down there.
too,
Exactly.
especially when you got that time management.
Exactly.
It's like, well, if I drive 30 minutes, that's an hour round trip, so I've just lost an hour of training.
Right.
If I want a long run. When did you find, because you said I didn't know there was something past a marathon. When did you find out there was? And then B to the question is, when did you say, hey, I want to do an ultra?
It was, I'd kind of jumped into it. It was kind of that kid in the candy store effect again. I started watching YouTube channels. I listened to the Ginger Runner, things like that. And they were talking about trails, and there's documentaries and things like that. And I was like, you know what? One of these days, I'm gonna run a 100-miler. That was my next. That was it. Yeah, after my my
why
marathon,
not? Yeah,
I was
26 to 100.
Exactly.
It's a natural progression, right?
Exactly.
It's like, what's next?
Yeah. And so I knew that I needed to set myself. I wanted to push myself to see where my limit was. I knew that I could accomplish 26 miles. I knew that was what it took for me to get there, and I knew I was capable of more. So I wanted to see where that limit is. Where is my limit? And to this day, I haven't reached my limit. I know I haven't.
Well, I mean, here's how I look at it, and not knowing you real well, we've had conversations, we've talked in the past, but from what your journey started out, and now you're talking about limit, I don't think you have any. I really don't. I think the hardest thing, in my opinion, is going from 400-ish pounds to where you're at now. To me, I can't imagine that. Like, literally. I can imagine before I ran 100, I could kind of imagine what that was like, right?
Right.
But so for you having a limit, I think it's self-imposed with you.
Right.
Right? Like, I wouldn't bet against you on anything. If you said, hey, I'm doing a 100-mile, I'm like, cool, you're going to finish it. If you said you're going to do a 200, I would say, cool. Like, I wouldn't bet against you just from where you've come.
Right.
Because like you said, it's mental, so much of it is.
Yeah, it really is.
And you're driven, you're more confident, things like that. But I think what the listeners want to know is, when did you start listening to the TrailManners podcast?
Oh. That was before I moved up to Ogden.
Okay,
for sure.
Good.
Yeah,
right, good.
Yeah. In fact, it was. I think around that same time I was training for my marathon. I ran across you guys.
Throw that out there. You're talking about other people. I'm like, what about us? What about us?
Yeah. Really. You guys were a big part of motivating me for more. No lie. You would talk about longer distances, and I love the fact that you guys were local.
Yeah.
And you were talking about local runners, and I mean, it was a big part of it.
Well, you're part of the community too. So what was did you have like you said you wanted to go to 100, but your first ultra was Beaverhead, which was this past July 2018.
Yeah.
55K, which I ran with you.
Yeah.
And how did you pick that one? Right. I mean, that was your first ultra, and that's not an easy. That's not an easy 55K. There's 50 milers I would do way quicker than that one. I mean, but I'm doing it again. But it's hard. It's a hard 55K.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I mean, why did you run that one as your first ultra?
Yeah, it was you guys.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it really was. I heard you guys talking about it, and so I was like, you know what, July is a good time to run. So it worked out well for my schedule. So I was like, I'm going for it.
What'd you feel like after that race? I mean, I saw you at the finish line. I saw your wife and your some family and friends. What was that like for you, though?
Honestly, I came across and I felt like I had more.
Yeah, you looked good. You did. You looked better than I did.
Yeah,
sure.
I was surprised on how good I felt. It was actually, I knew that my training over the summer, spring and summer, really paid off, because I knew I could do more at that point. The unfortunate thing for me is that I had won a entry into the Desert News Marathon.
When's that one?
A week later.
Oh yeah,
so I ran that, and that was a train wreck.
It's a recovery run.
Oh, it was sheer awfulness. At one point I laid down on the side of the road and almost quit. And so that wasn't the smartest move I've ever made.
You got to get up when they start drawing chalk around your body print. That's when you got to.
That's
when you know
exactly
you
almost got what I got to, and that one I learned the hard way was notorious for lack of nutrition, and at one aid station they actually ran out of cups.
Oh, that's nice.
And it was I don't know, it was July 24th, so it's
super
cool
cold.
Yeah, exactly. It was nice.
We're not in the 3 digits or anything on asphalt.
Exactly. Yeah. So
but you finished.
I did finish. That was it wasn't pretty, but I finished that one, and that one kind of that set me back a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what. I did the 55K at the Beaverhead this year. If someone said, "Hey, you want to run a marathon the next weekend?" I would have gave them the old year number one. So
Exactly.
I mean, I can't imagine that, let alone a road marathon. I mean, I've never run a road marathon in my life.
Right.
And people say all the time, oh, because you run hundreds and 50s, so they're too easy. I'm like, it's the absolute opposite. I don't want to because that seems harder for me.
Yeah.
Like the consistent pounding. I don't like to be hot. I don't like
Yeah.
non-scenery. So it's easier. To me, it's harder. So if someone said run a marathon, I would, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but you did.
There was a little bit of obligation there just because Desert News was doing a news article on me.
Oh.
They put it in the paper. So
okay.
I kind of had this, kind of signed up for it, and I was like, I really don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway.
I gotta please the paparazzi.
Exactly. But I finished it, and it kind of set me back, and so I've kind of taken the fall off a little bit, but I'm getting back into it right now.
Good. So you're getting back into it. What's on what's your plans for 2019? Do you have any plans set yet?
I don't. I've got a free race to Rain Shadow Running.
Oh, man. Oh, that's right. You won at the film festival.
That's right. So I got to pick that. I think I've got my eye on the Oregon coast. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
The last year looked gorgeous. Oregon coast have a 50K and a 30K.
Yeah,
that's a week after the Bear.
Right.
So that's the only bad thing for me on that one. I want number one. James Varner is legit badass. Just the nicest guy. Puts on the best events. So any of his races, it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
That looks like a good one, though.
Yeah, you start off on the beach and you kind of run down, and then I think you take a turn and you head up into the forest, and so you get the whole green and redwood effect and just the whole what the Northwest has to offer, and then you finish on the beach again. So I don't see how that one could be bad. And I think the other one I was kind of going back and forth on was I think it's called the Lost Coast or the I can't remember the name of it, where you run along the coastline and you got to beat the tide, essentially.
Is that one? I think that one is after the Oregon coast, because I've had that one on my list, if I remember. Maybe it's not the same one.
I can't remember the exact name of it, but
well, the one I'm thinking of, there's the Oregon coast, and man, I don't have it with me.
I remember watching they did a short movie on it at the film festival.
Yeah, I do too, and it's making me really mad because it's one I wanted to run.
Yeah.
But it's so Oregon coast is 2 weeks after the Bear this year. And the one I'm going to find it so we can keep talking, because I'm going to find now I'm upset.
Yeah.
Just because I don't know which one it is. But he's got a lot of good races I wanted to run.
Right.
I think that one is after the Oregon coast one. It is. I'm going to find it right now. Oh, no, maybe not. Okay, never mind. I'm not.
So.
Okay, I'm out. Because I know I've wanted to do Orcas Island.
Yep, that's one of his races on my list as well.
He's got Secret Beach.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
yep,
so Secret Beach is the week before Oregon Coast.
Okay.
So that's the one that's the week after Bear.
Right.
And so the Secret Beach, I think last year was its first one.
Yeah.
And they only have 100K and a 50 mile, so I know, a week after the Bear, I won't be able to do either distance. So Oregon Coast 30K is like really close to a possibility.
Right.
Just because it wouldn't be anything but just enjoyment.
Right.
So you're looking at one of those. So you mentioned early in the show, just briefly, that you want to do 100.
Yeah.
What does that look like for you? Are you looking to go and wait another year? Is there 100 you'd like to be your first?
Yeah. I'm definitely not. My wife's in school right now, so I don't have the time to train for 100. But I think next year,
2020.
Maybe the year after.
2021.
I'd like to get a good 50 miler under my belt first. So but the Bear 100s.
You want that beer first?
Yeah,
nice.
I think so. I ran Logan Peak last year.
Yep.
And
first part of the course.
Oh, just fell in love with that area.
And the funny thing is
beautiful.
It's prettier after that. That's
what's funny. It really?
Oh yeah, the Bear 100 to this day. I mean, you can ask people that run all over. But that's one of the prettiest hundreds. I don't care. Period.
Yeah.
And I haven't run all over the world, but
right.
It's still the time of year. It's a crapshoot weather-wise.
Yeah.
But it's a time of year. Okay, so you mentioned a 50. Do you have a 50 you want to do as your first 50?
I really haven't decided on that. I may just stick with something maybe local and do something like Squaw.
That was my first 50. That's a tough 50, though, too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's legit.
Right. But, that I don't know. I don't think that I know that Scout Mountain, I think they have a 50.
Yeah, they've got some other distances now, too.
Yeah, I think so, too.
That's a hard one.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I ran that 35K, and I'll tell you that was harder than
going up Scout. Yeah, that's a grind.
Oh man,
and even coming down's a grind.
Yeah, I think going up for me it was just fine. It was getting back in that Nordic Center. That's the worst. Yeah, during the heat and through that grass, it was just sucked the life out of me.
A lot of carnage through there.
Yeah.
So you don't have anything else like really
No,
planned?
I don't. No, not really. I think this year I'm going to really focus on not so much races, but I'd really like to do some adventure running.
Nice.
I know me and my friend Natalie, we're going to go up to the Tetons.
Oh yeah.
We're going to do some backpacking up there, or at least we're going to try for it.
Nice.
And then, but I'd really like to do Temp. There's a lot here that Utah has to offer that I haven't really been able to take advantage of yet. And I think I want to focus on.
Nice. Yeah, there's a lot around. There's a lot of adventure runs I have on my list for the year too. So my racing might come short because of that. Because it's just there's things I want to see. Yeah. Things I want to do. Maybe it's a bucket list. Maybe it's check off the list or whatever. But there is a lot to do around here. Are you doing what do you do now? So you're down to whatever weight you're at, under 200, whatever. We'll just throw that out there.
Yeah.
Do you find it a lifestyle now? Like what the change you made for eating? I mean, is that kind of what you do now? Are you that strict anymore, knowing that, hey, I'm kind of where I want to be, or do you have to feel like to be that strict so you don't go upwards? I mean, are you flexible? It doesn't bother you. Hey, I gained 5 pounds. Okay, well, I'll just have to work harder. Yeah.
I think it comes down to that. It's knowing I'm not as strict of where I was. I mean, before I was entering my calories in.
Yeah.
In fact, I was entering my calories in before I would into my FitnessPal.
Yeah.
Before I would even consume them, so I knew exactly how much I was eating.
Okay.
You enter a donut in, one time into that thing, and you realize the calories you're putting in.
That would be like a saved category for me, where I just hit it every day. So I'm like, okay, well, if I get X amount a day, I know a donut's taking up this much. I love donuts, man.
Oh yeah, pizza is for me. You put a pizza in front of me to this day, I black out and come to when it's gone.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
You wake up with some sauce on your face. What just happened?
Yeah.
Did I just get roofied?
Some grass field at like 3 a.m. and just.
Long as you have your clothes on, it's a good day. That's what I like. If you black out and you wake up with your clothes on, everything's fine. If you don't have your clothes on, that's when you're in trouble.
Yeah, right.
That's hilarious.
I'm definitely not as strict, but just because I've learned that what it takes to, get healthy, and I'm okay with. When I take a little bit of time off and I'm relaxing, if I'm not eating as healthy, because I know what it takes to get back and become healthy. And that's where I'm at right now. I've put on a few pounds lately, and I'm getting back after it.
Yeah.
Because I know that I want to start training for this next season, and so I'm going to, focus in again.
So let me ask you this: from your first marathon weight to where you ran Beaverhead weight,
right?
How does that feel difference-wise? I'm not talking about distance, terrain, but just on your body, like carrying that much less. I mean, is it just crazy different?
No, there wasn't a lot of difference. In fact, I think I was a little heavier for Beaverhead than I was for my marathon.
Okay.
It just because it was muscle weight. I was training, and I was utilizing Malins on a regular basis. I was running that probably 4 times a week.
Wow.
Where I was running, 3-4 times during the week, and then I'd go up and sometimes I do doubles on Malins on the weekend. So I was trying to get the vert in, and I was noticing that I was putting on a few pounds, but it was just because
good weight though.
Yeah. My legs were getting stronger, my calves were getting stronger, and it was a little frustrating because my jeans, I'd fit in the waist, but my legs were just like I have to go to the size up. But, oh well.
Clothing problems, man.
Exactly.
Did you save any of your old clothes?
I did. In fact, I can fit into one leg in my old pants. Into one leg.
Oh, your whole body?
Yeah, my whole body. I can put both my legs into one leg of my jeans that I was at before. In fact, I can fit another kid into the other leg, and we both have room.
That's unbelievable, man. Like just. Loss of words, unbelievable. Like I cannot. I know how. know it sounds petty. I know it sounds whatever, but I know for me wanting to lose 20 pounds,
right,
the mental capacity, because I think, again, like what you're saying, when you're dropping, say, excess weight, right? Or you're kind of more fine-tuning.
Right.
Like for me, I'm a food guy. I do all my own cooking.
Yeah.
I love the taste of food. I don't cook with sticks of butter, but, you know, I love the taste of food. I'm not like a fast food guy, but I love to cook. So,
right.
You know, I go through. Last year was a rough year for me, like for a lot of reasons, but a lot of it too was I'd go ebb and flow with my weight.
Right.
I'd eat really healthy and then I'd come off. And the biggest thing I noticed for me was how I felt.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always, and mentally was a huge thing. Like I would feel that way. Like when I would be trimmed down, I would lost 20 pounds mentally. I'm like, okay, this is awesome. And I'd be pumped, but then I would hit these roadblocks where, you know, I was doing some personal things in my life and I'd hit these lulls and I'd just eat.
Right.
I'd sit here, watch TV with my dog, eat.
Right.
And not train, not work out. And that hit me mentally.
Yeah.
And so I went through these crazy valleys based on a 20-pound difference.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I totally get it.
But I mean, hearing your story, I'm looking at myself going, come on, man. Like, seriously. It's not that if Garth can do it, I can. It's a matter of what you went through compared to what I want to do just to feel better.
Right.
It's so inspiring. Like, I didn't know your story when I first met you. And I don't know how I found out, to be honest with you.
Right.
I don't know if it was the newspaper article. It took a long time for me to, you know, after I first knew who you were, to see it. But I'm like, I don't.
Right.
I can't picture you sitting across from me at 400 pounds.
Right.
You know, because this is who I know right now. And that's got to be awesome for your family.
Yeah.
For you, looking at old photographs. I mean, I guess it's probably good and bad, right? When you look at old stuff, and you're like, oh my gosh. But then it's like, well, look where I've come.
Yeah. Right.
And the example you've set for your family is amazing.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the biggest things I'm proud of.
Yeah.
Is that how, you know, where does that affect my family? You know, what kind of example? Where is that going to take them? Because there was so much of my life. There was so much that I missed out on.
Yeah.
And I know that I've still got quite a few years, obviously,
Yeah.
but it's kind of one of my biggest regrets as I look back, and I was like, man, what if I was 20?
Yeah.
You know, and I was able to do this. You know what I mean? Where would it be now? You know, because there's so much more I want to do. I would love to learn how to rock climb. I would love to learn how to mountaineer, do some mountaineering, and just do all of these things that. You know, now it's more of a balance of time and family, and obviously those are sacrifices that I'm wanting to make just because I enjoy them. But back when you're younger, you know, it's a different lifestyle, right?
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
So what advice would you have to any of the listeners out there that maybe, and it doesn't even have to be a weight thing, but I mean, your goal was big.
Right.
So for someone, maybe it is a weight thing. Maybe someone wants to drop some weight. Maybe it's not significant like that, but maybe it is. What advice would you have to somebody that has to literally, you know, just put their foot down and say, I've got to start now?
There's probably three things.
Okay.
First of all, it's okay to make a mistake when you're trying to eat healthy.
Okay.
If you have a piece of cake or you have a second helping, don't beat yourself up over it. You know, wake up the next morning and start making the right decisions. Secondly, change the way you look at food in general. Look at it as what it is, and that's fuel for your body. Whatever you're planning or whatever your goal is, if you treat food as a fuel, you're going to look at what you consume so much differently than just mindless eating.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to look at it as purposely consuming things that are going to get maximum, benefit out of your body. Everybody knows that you go out and you pig out at McDonald's, you are not going to feel great afterwards. There's a direct correlation there, but people continue to do it, right?
Yep.
But if you look at it as, you know, if I eat healthy, I'm going to feel healthy and I'm going to be able to perform more.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah. And I would say the last piece is that just go out and just start. Doesn't matter where you're at, just do it.
Yeah.
Because when you're healthy, the world is open to you. There's nothing you can't do. And then just doors open. They really do.
Well, and like I said, I can't thank you enough for sitting down with us, because there's a lot of these, And again, everybody learns, everybody changes, everybody does something on their own level. One thing isn't right for everybody, like you mentioned.
Right.
But I think when you have stories that people it's more real.
Right.
I can pick up a book of someone that's transformed their life, which we all have done at some point probably, and it's like, that's really cool. But when you know that person, and again, I don't know you as well as I know a lot of people.
Right.
But when you have the living proof in front of you, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different because, some people's journeys, every journey's hard. Some people have more help than others. But I don't know, having you, getting to know you, knowing what you've came from, it's better than a book. Because you're living proof. And I think I would rather listen to you than what a book would say.
Right.
Because I know, not that they haven't for sure, but, sitting across from you and listening how kind of humble you are when you talk about it, because it's not a small feat, right? This is like,
right.
It literally is life-saving.
Right.
And I'll say that because I mean that. And that's partly why we wanted to have you come on, share your story, and sometimes, like you're already even on in the podcast you mentioned,
right?
It's a little uncomfortable to talk about this, but you talk about it because to help somebody else, and that's ultimately what it is. You're inspiring. Whether we talked about this before the show, guests, elite athletes, and everything else, but your story to me is so much more inspiring than a lot of other stories, because yours is real, yours is life. It's not recreational. It evolves around everything.
Right.
So I think for you, I hope you do walk around with more confidence just because of what you've done for your family. People that know your story, I'm pumped that we get to share this story with our listeners, because I know we've had listeners in the past that have reached out, had this discussion. But, just those little tidbits of advice. You did it.
Yeah.
You're living proof. You're smiling. You're happy. Every time I see you, you've got a smile on your face.
Right.
It's almost no wonder, from where you've come from. And sometimes the goals aren't as big as that, right?
Yeah, and they don't have to be. But it's the same struggle.
It's the same struggle. Everybody's
really
got that.
Yeah.
That I don't know, that thing in their head, or maybe, it's a real thing, but it's always one thing, right? It's like life has money, job, appearance, whatever it is, but there's always that one big glaring thing in someone's life,
right.
And you never know what it is sometimes.
It's true.
But yeah, it's awesome. It's so cool that you came on and shared that, and with what you're doing. And I wouldn't bet against you for sure. I'm not kidding you when I say that, for your 100-miler or whatever it is. But I like what you said. I'm not doing races as much. I don't have the time because my wife's going back to school, or she's in school, whatever it is.
Right.
So it's that balance again.
Yeah, it really is.
It's like, hey, honey, I did my thing. Your turn, do your thing, and then when you're done with that, we'll figure the next phase out. Right?
Exactly.
And that's kind of how it works. So she supported you. Now you're supporting her.
Definitely.
Doing things for it. So that's really cool, man. What you're doing, and it's a good message to people out there, not just runners, but just everyday people too. And
I want to say one last thing is that if there's anybody out there that is struggling to get going and just looking for someone to get out the door with, hit me up. I am always up for a run. I'm always up for a good discussion. You want to bounce ideas off me. You want to talk about it. You want to hit the trails. I'm not fast, so I am. If I'm out there with a group and I'll go any pace, I'll just hang back and we can talk. So I love being out on the group trails with groups and with people. So if you want to get out on a run, come hit me up anytime.
Right. And you can message me, Manners, at TrailManners.com, and we can correlate. I don't want to throw your information to the whole world because you never know what's going to happen. You might have Olive Garden coming after you.
That is
your information out there, so we don't want to do that. But no, I think that's really cool. I wish you the best of luck. It'd be nice to get out and run with you. Maybe an adventure run would be fun.
Yeah.
I saw what you did a lot this past year. You did a lot of cool stuff, not just races, but you were all over. You were at Grand Canyon, I think.
Yeah, Grand Canyon. Yeah.
You were at Zion.
Yeah, we did Zion's the year before. Yeah, Me and my friend Natalie, we go out.
Who is awesome, by the way. We love Natalie.
Definitely. She's a big part of why I keep running, and she's a big motivation in my life too. So
that's awesome.
I'm glad I've got to know her, and that's another connection I've made through running.
Yeah. There's something to it.
I'll tell you.
We talk about it a lot. There's something to the running community that is really fun and unique to be a part of, and that's the TrailManners podcast. We just are happy to be a part of it, a speck somewhere within the trail running community, because it's what we love too, and we get to meet people like yourself. I'd have never met you, right?
That's true.
Without it, and So I appreciate that. But, yeah, thanks for coming on. Thanks for the story. And we'll be tracking you to see when that first 50 and first 100-miler come up for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So thanks for joining us, Garth, and good luck.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the TrailManners podcast. We'd like to thank Garth Harris for joining me today and sharing his story of running. We also want to encourage everybody to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at TrailManners, or swing by our website at trailmanners.com. There you can hit us up on the contact page. Let us know what you want to see, who you want to hear, or if you would like to be on the show. Until next time, this is Eric Manning reminding you, you don't get what you wish for, you get what you work for. Now go get it.